Steven, I'm a golden god when it comes to bowling. I just had my personal best bowling game ever. Ever. I might be the best bowler ever. Because who do you think you are? I am.
Steven, I'm the greatest bowler with an afro in the world.
Isn't there someone named Kyle Troop that also has an afro and he's in the PBA?
Well, he's not as good as me, Steven. I'm better. I have a better fro, better abs, better ass.
Papa John's.
Yeah. I rolled a 276 the other night. I was 2 strikes away from perfection. I started off with 7 strikes. The 8th ball, not very good. Didn't throw a good first ball, but cleaned up the spare. Then threw another couple more strikes, and then finished with 8 at the end, which gave me the 276.
Nice.
Which isn't bad. 10 strikes out of 12. One little tweak happened. The guy on my team was like a former coach of bowling. Just one little tip, and that corrected one little thing. And I became more consistent because of the one little tip.
What was the one little tip?
Just lower the ball in my approach. So I would start with it way too high. And then what happens is I get too much speed on the ball. When I get too much speed on the ball doesn't move or hook, or I end up yanking it through because my timing is off. Bowling is all about timing. If your timing gets thrown off with your walk or something, you just can't be consistent. You need to be consistent. You need to get some breaks. You need to keep your wrist nice and tight and then flick at the end. And so it just rolled very nice. 7 in a row is good. Oh, and I bowled last night for fun. My last game, I started with 7 in a row again, so it wasn't just a fluke. But that 8th frame, I fucked up. I bowled a 9 in the 8th. Well, I got a spare, and then I 9 spared in the 10th. Then I threw a strike, and I finished with a 256.
Nice.
But it's crazy how quickly your pins drop if you don't strike, right? It's just the math of bowling to get to 300. You don't if you don't throw all strikes and like one spare in the middle and then all strikes, it's the high you can get there is 279. So 276, my high game, and that's what I got to say about that. Cool. Greatest bowler in the history of bowling.
I don't have much to comment because I really couldn't care less about bowling personally.
Yeah, I was gonna think we should do a FroKnowsPhoto night at bowling.
Oh, please!
That wouldn't be any fun. Watching Dan. Oh, see, Dan used to be on my bowling team.
Dan won't be able to pick up the ball. Snap his arm in half.
No, so when I gave him a ball, I gave him the raw ball. The raw ball because that's what they had. But no, Dan stopped bowling with us this summer. This prior season, so we had to throw someone else on the team when Dan was no longer on our bowling team. But
you'll never find me on a bowling team, I'll tell you that.
No, we'd never find you on a bowling team?
No. I wouldn't be good at it, and I just don't care about it.
I enjoy it. I have said it all along that I will have 2 lanes at one of my houses when I do have a place that can fit 2 bowling lanes.
That has been on your wish list for probably as long as I've known you.
Yeah, you got to have goals,
right? You were close,
right?
too. I feel like you were going to get something installed, or am I making that up?
Yeah, no, I don't have any room. I don't have the room.
Or you wanted to buy a place that had a bowling alley, or I don't know.
I was looking into it.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
One of the first places before we bought the Fro Factory, the other one, so by we, I mean me, there was a place in Collingswood that was like an old VFW or something, and in the basement there were 6 lanes.
That's it. You wanted to specifically buy it because it had bowling lanes, and I'm like, why?
But
buy
it was
something more practical for us.
It was really run down.
Yeah.
And like the fact that I'm 2.5 minutes from the studio is amazing. And there's Collingswood is all right, but it's over the bridge. You got to drive there. It wouldn't have been that bad for you.
Well, Collingswood's still a little bit of a hike for me. But the funny thing is, you're only 2.5 minutes away from your house, but you hate going back home if you forgot something. And I'm like, dude, you're 5 minutes away. If I had to go back home, it's a different story. It's an hour plus round trip.
Yeah, I know.
Like you refuse to. I'll be like, dude, just go get this light that you left at your house. No. Why? I don't feel like it.
That's fine. Anyway, yeah. So one day I'll have a bowling two lanes at my house, and I just got to buy a different house for that at some point. If I
Fro
decide
Factory number 17.
Yeah, that's it.
So douchey.
Quite a bit. Yeah, no, you're douchey. Talk about. We've got June 1st is the anniversary of FroKnowsPhoto. We're going to talk about that. I decided to fly to Boston. We'll get into that for a little bit. Then there was the article about a guy having $15,000 worth of gear broken on an airplane when he checked his luggage.
Ouch.
I want to go into a little bit more detail than the 3 minutes I could do on the latest Photo News Fix, and that's why I sent you guys over here. If you listen to Photo News Fix, then you came here to listen to that. I will go into some more details about flying with your gear. Then, of course, the biggest news in the photo industry for the past week or so has been Gerald Undone talking about trips and the efficacy of going on trips. So a lot of people have talked about that. I really didn't want to dive into this because it's really not worth it. One, because most people don't understand the point of these things, and two, most people misunderstand and leave comments that just don't make any sense because they just don't know.
And three, we've talked about our own thoughts on trips tons of times on this podcast. After every single trip, we just we have. We've been very open about these trips. We don't hide them, and not at all.
We've talked about them forever. So
we're probably the only ones that are extremely vocal about these trips and have always been.
I can't wait to tell you the Olympus story, which I've shared deep in the past. But man, I told Manny, because I talked to Manny Ortiz quite a bit because we talked about the
vlog of the Olympus trip.
Manny goes, "Oh yeah, I remember that vlog. That was the best video you ever did." I don't remember watching it. Is it still on our storage? We could go take a look.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, it's still on the back end for sure, but we did a hard delete, not even an unlisting or a private video on YouTube. I'm pretty sure that was a hard deleted video.
I want to see that. I want to see that video.
I don't ever want to watch that video again.
Was it that bad?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Was it the Nutella thing?
Yes. It was absolutely about your trying to order cake on the phone and getting mad about it.
I know. I was joking.
It didn't come across that way. That's the thing.
Whatever. Yeah, well, people didn't like it. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. Canon R1 news, Canon R5 Mark II news, lots of specs flying around.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like people know a hell of a lot more than we do, which is always fun. I get messages from people and they're like, "I'm sure you already have it and you just can't say and you're under NDA." It's like, why do you assume? Like, you don't know what we know when we know it anyway, but we don't know anything.
Yeah, I don't blame them for assuming, though. I mean, typically we do have stuff before embargo lifts, but this time around we really don't know anything.
It's a totally different ball game. And then I had a couple questions come in from some readers that I thought were good, that I think are important because it involves you guys out there as photographers. Yeah, I think you're going to want to listen to these because you've run into these situations in the past. So there's that. All right, let's bring it up to the Boston thing. I wasn't fully sure last week, which we talked a lot about why I'm going to Boston, whether or not I was going to take the train or decide to fly. I decided to book my flight. Just a hell of a lot easier. It's half the price to fly. My ass is only sitting in a seat for an hour and 20 minutes. I don't care about having to wait at the airport or get to where I need to go after I get to the airport, Logan International. I rather sit for less than have to be 5 hours sitting on a train. That seems like a hell of a lot worse than, say, 4 hours of the experience to get to Boston and airport and hotel.
100%. Yeah. Flying over, taking the train all day.
Just half the price.
Yep, and it's cheaper, yeah. Can't beat it.
Yeah. So, Stephen, I didn't bring this up, but I saw an article that a photographer was suing the Call Her Daddy, Alex Cooper.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So here's what happened. The photographer, her name is Wolf. She claims that she introduced herself to Cooper and her entourage as the in-house photographer after they arrived at the club that they were going to be photographing at. However, according to the New York Post, a very good source for news, not really, when it was time to take pictures of the podcaster, the photographer alleges that a person believed to be a member of Ms. Cooper's team or entourage unprovoked began shouting and yelling at Miss Wolf. "Who the fuck are you?"
Jeez.
The man allegedly asked the photographer. The pair then allegedly shared a tense confrontation that grew physical as the struggle over Wolf's camera, which she claims sent her flying backwards onto the ground. Following the confrontation, the photographer claims that she injured her back. After bringing the incident to Cooper's attention, the podcaster allegedly ignored Wolf for months. The photographer is now suing Cooper and Bulldozer Productions over the incident. Wolf is asking a judge to force the company to give her the names of those involved and any information about the event. Cooper's attorney, Brian Friedman Jew, tells the New York Post that the photographer's allegations are simply an insurance claim. Now, I'm going to end right there. I don't know the situation. I'm not there. I wasn't there. What I can tell you, though, is in the past, I've been in situations where I am the photographer of record to be at an event, and someone decides they want to yell at me and ask me, what am I doing while I'm trying to shoot the show? They get in your face. They yell at you. A lot of times it could be the security for the band, but generally speaking, it's like I introduce myself to everybody possible, all the security people, but still it doesn't fail that someone's going to come up to you while it's super loud and the band is just starting when you only have 3 songs or whatever you need to do to get the shot, and they start yelling at you and almost get physical. You've got experience here.
Yeah, there's been quite a few close calls over the years. One that I can specifically remember that got physical. That was when the radio station I worked for had their big birthday concert. It was our, big annual concert that we throw every single year. I was the house photographer. I covered the entire show. I had full access, all access to go backstage, dressing rooms, everywhere pretty much the entire night. I knew all of the security guards. I've photographed at this specific venue numerous times throughout the years at this point. But for some reason, this one specific security guard just had it out for me that night. And again, I thought we had a good rapport, but he didn't think I was supposed to be photographing the entire concert. And, the pit clears out after 3 songs. I'm supposed to be there. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm good. I'm here for the whole set, all access, look at my pass. And he's screaming at me. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, you know me. And I'm showing him my pass. And he just grips me up and throws me across the pit. And I came back at him. And it wasn't just like a quick push. It was a violent throw, like I had a weapon or something. Now, luckily, again, I know all the other security guards. So they all kind of jumped in. We're like, hey, what are you doing? Like, this is our buddy. Like, you know him. So no apology. He lets go of me. He just kind of walks away all angry and everything. I went to the manager that night, his boss basically, and told him the story. And the second I said he gripped me up, he's like, he put his hands on you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's it. And he stormed out, and he was very close to getting fired. He apologized in person that night. I think it was a half-ass apology that he was forced to do, because ever since then, I feel like there's always been some kind of passive aggressiveness going on between us. And it's usually not me. I was always like the nice guy in the pit every single time. I was always the guy that was like, hey man, how you doing? What's up? So I have no idea what happened. I caught him on a bad night maybe, but the second you lay your hands on me, that's when there is an issue.
I had to, when I was on tour with Perry Farrell, I obviously approved to go on stage and shoot, and this douchebag stage manager out in California was like, you can't go here. I'm like, I have an all-access pass. And he gave me shit. And I'm like, but the problem was it was the end of the tour, and I was at the end of my rope because, you get really on edge. You get really short fused on tour by the end because it's just a lot.
Rinse and repeat, yeah.
And I just got in the guy's face and yelled at him and ignored him as he tried to grab my arm and just told him to fuck off. And then my tour manager came up and was yelling at him to be like, he could do whatever he wants. He can go. He's the, whatever. So,
like you said, though, no matter how many times you talk to security or the band or whoever beforehand, something always happens during the show when it's the loudest environment ever. And there's just more miscommunication that happens.
And they want to take you off to the side where they can hear you while you're missing what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
Because you run out of time, and it's frustrating. So, do I feel that this person, based off of what she said happened, do I feel that this happened? Probably yes. Do I think it's just an insurance claim to get money? I hate when lawyers are assholes, because if an altercation led to her being thrown backwards and falling and hurting herself, that can happen if you just bump something. You could hurt your knee literally just bumping it against the barricade. Like, yeah. I would have, if that ever happens in that situation, you don't try to go through email or anything. You go to the venue management. You go to the head of security. You don't leave until you get the information of the people, and it's not all right. You don't wait till after the fact.
That's exactly what I did when that guy gripped me up at that specific venue.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of Alex Cooper, we actually did a RAWtalk episode with her years ago, 7-8 years ago, something like that, before she was officially Call Her Daddy. If you look it up online, you'll see that. And it was right when she was getting started after college.
She was an intern at Barstool Sports at the time.
Was she at that time?
Yes, she was, because that's how I met her, through Dave Leno at the Philadelphia Union game. Okay. She was part part of Barstool Sports. They sent her down to watch or whatever. I'm like, she's hot. I want to have her on my podcast.
Well, I recall you wanted to help her out, find her way. Like she didn't know what she really wanted to do.
She was also hot, and I wanted to help her.
I was trying to help you out there, but
I also, had Cookie on.
Oh God,
that one time that podcast I almost deleted. Quick story.
Do we still have that up online?
Yeah, it's still up. A friend was like, you should have her on. She makes YouTube videos. I didn't find out that she hadn't posted in 6 months until she came on the show, and I was none too happy about how that show went. I almost just canceled the whole damn thing. But anyway, with Alex Cooper, you can look up the episode because I did change the name to call her daddy. And I remember someone in the comments after the fact was like, he's just trying to capitalize. It was like, and then someone commented back and was like, well, yeah.
Of course.
He interviewed her before she was anything. He changed the title so people can find it to hear it. What is wrong with that?
We should actually like retitle it early Alex Cooper interview before she was Call Her Daddy, like something like that.
I don't care. I really don't care. I'm sure it wasn't that good of an interview. It was me just giving thoughts on how you could be successful online. Yep. I even gave her a microphone, I believe. You did. To do something. Mm-hmm. Next up, we're coming up on June 1st. And for those who don't know, I launched FroKnowsPhoto.com on June... Oh, sorry, I should say it properly, as I said in 2010. I launched FroKnowsPhoto... Photo.
Yo, you from Philly?
June 1st of 2010. That's when I launched it. June 1st now is 2020 in 2024. Means 14 years of YouTube. That is a long time. And I want to thank everybody, whether they've been here since June 1st of 2010, which there are people that were actually there before when I put up videos under JaredPolin.com as I built out the launch of FroKnowsPhoto.com, or someone who just started watching. I really appreciate the fact that you've been around this long. Maybe you started and left and came back and then left again because you got pissed off, or maybe you've been here all along.
That seems to be typical.
Yeah, but I've been here for 14 years making YouTube videos. So it's been a long time.
Love them or hate them.
Yeah, thankfully we don't hear that very often when people write articles anymore. But my intention was never to make YouTube videos to be a educator. It was always to try and get more jobs.
Yeah.
And when I didn't get more jobs right at the beginning and I got more questions, I answered every question by making a video about that question, because if some person had a video about that, then 150 or 200 more people would probably want to find the answer to that question as well.
Sure.
So I've made over 3,500 videos with hundreds of millions of views at this point. And
when did you start the video every single day?
June 1st, 2010.
You started releasing daily videos on June 1st.
I was putting up 2 videos a day at the beginning.
Oh, wow.
2 videos. I would wake up. Wake up.
Serge Tankian.
Why don't I but trust in my...
Never a fan, personally.
Anyway, I used to put up 2 videos a day. I would wake up. Can I do it in Mickey Mouse's voice?
Oh my God.
No, I won't do that. I would wake up every day, make a video in the morning, edit that video, post it.
Oh, hold on. Edit in air quotes.
Edit meant put the video onto the computer,
and
put
hit
my
export.
intro on. No, put my intro on and an outro on, and then hit export.
Yes,
no
yes.
editing in the middle. No
I'm telling you, man, you still kind of abide by those rules where you kind of edit yourself while we're filming the videos, and you try to rush through a video every single time without stopping. It's like, take a beat, man, breathe.
It's been 14 years.
You conditioned yourself to be that way.
Yeah.
And you still have not changed.
I would put up the one video, then go have lunch. After lunch, come up with another video idea, film it, edit it, post it, and then throughout the night, I would answer comments, reply to everything, answer my Skype line, because at the very beginning, I opened up my Skype line. I thought about giving out my phone number so that anybody could call at any time. I'm like, that's probably not a good idea if this gets any bigger. So I put out my Skype name at the time, and people could call. And I said, if I'm at my computer and someone calls me on Skype, I will answer. And if they had a question, I would ask if I could record the call. I recorded the call audio only because that's how Skype worked. And then I would put that audio up as a video with a screen that said, Skype call, FroKnowsPhoto Skype call, and it would be an 8 to 10 minute call. And I put that stuff up on YouTube and people listened. It was incredible.
What was the early live streaming platform? Was it Broadcast or something? Or
no, it was Ustream.
Ustream, that's it. Is that
it
still
was
around?
Justin.tv.
Justin.tv, yep.
Which became Twitch at some point, ended up becoming Twitch. But yeah, it was Ustream. And those who remember very early on in 2010, the original FroKnowsPhoto show that had 8 episodes with Greg and I, and then Ari would help, and then Gizzy was the one who would throw questions at us. It was awesome. We live streamed to like 450 people in 2010. Like,
wow.
Through a DSL connection with one camera, the XHA1 Sony camcorder.
I'm shocked you could even live stream through a DSL connection.
We did.
It's like 3.
Did I say DSLR?
No, you said DSL.
Okay, I thought it said. So we did. It didn't always work perfect, but we were live streaming in 2010. We were early doing a FroKnowsPhoto show, which
live streaming in 240p.
480 maybe.
I don't know, man. That's like 3 megs up, if that.
Steven, those videos are on the back end. You can go look. They're back there.
Probably 360 at most.
They're unlisted because when Greg and I went separate ways, one of the things I said I would do was unlist those videos. But man, those videos were good. It was fun. We did a live show. We did the news. It was very similar to what the podcast
RAWtalk.
It was very similar to RAWtalk, but it just super early. But anyway, I made 2 videos a day until I got burnt out on that. And then I went to 1 video a day, and it averaged out to 1 video a day for 7 years by the time I stopped doing 1 video a day. But I always felt like I needed to do that. And I was, in essence, daily vlogging before daily vlogging was a thing. So I just wanted to acknowledge 14 years of FroKnowsPhoto. I did put up a sale, by the way, for that. You can get $14 off the Grand Slam bundle only when you go to FroKnowsPhoto.com/FroPack4. Click on the Grand Slam bundle. When you go to checkout, it's going to ask you if you have a code. The code is FRO14 altogether, FRO14, the number 14, to get $14 off. That ends on June 4th. You also get those extra entries into the Super Huge or Mega Camera giveaway that has less than 2 weeks on it. But yeah, that code will end on June 4th. So if you haven't gotten the Grand Slam bundle, we never give discounts. It's extremely rare.
It is very rare.
On Black Friday we do one, and either on my birthday or June 1st, that's about it.
And even Black Friday's hit or miss. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
And we do very small discounts because we don't want to devalue our products.
This might be the biggest one you've put out on at least the Fro Packs.
Yeah, I lose money every year. We continue because it's $15 next year.
Yep.
This year it's $14. Except the one thing I did on my 30th
100th
birthday.
anniversary of FroKnowsPhoto. Save $100. It's free.
Yeah.
We're actually going to pay you to take the presets.
Yeah. On my 30th birthday, I did a 3-shirt deal where it was $30 for 3 shirts. It was a black one, a red one, and a yellow one. At the time, those were the 3 shirts that I had. I remember I printed all those orders out. Then I made up every envelope, physically hand wrote them. I don't know why I felt the need. It felt more personal to do that. My dad and I went into the basement, which is where the shipping department was. I had all the racks.
I remember.
So we laid each one of those envelopes out on the ground. I just screamed over to my dad, I need medium. He would throw me 3 mediums. I would pile them on top. Then he was done and he left. And then I sat there and I folded every one of the shirts together and put them in the envelopes and shipped them out.
Wow.
I liked doing it. It made me feel like I was doing something good. Like nowadays, if I don't really push the shirts that much, there's not as much profit.
We rarely push shirts.
And I just don't like the method of having someone else do it. Maybe one day
we
I'll
also
bring
don't
it
do them
in-house
anymore.
No, maybe I'll bring it back in-house one day because it was I just like selling it more when it was in-house. I could see it. I could feel it. It was more tangible. Anyway, celebrating 14 years. So thank you. Steven, are you 10 years in yet?
I'm 11.
And Dan?
8, maybe 7, 8, something like that. I've been here since early 2013. So I think it was right before the 3rd anniversary of FroKnowsPhoto, a few months before that. So I was like 2.5 years in.
Crazy.
That's when we were doing just a ton of unboxings. I remember you were just like really focused on that, and it was just a lot of filler stuff for sure.
Yeah, a lot of filler stuff.
Yeah.
14 years of FroKnowsPhoto. We're here. We're queer. We're not going anywhere. Hey, hey, we're gay. We used to sing that in school, I think. I think that's what we used to chant. That's an okay chant. It's an okay chant. That's what the chant used to be. Speaking of chants, in celebration of Pride Month, we are going to change nothing about the channel. Unlike most businesses that decide that they want to, for 1 month, put rainbows on everything, I refuse to put rainbows on everything because I refuse to do anything. I'm going to stick to what we do every month. That if I'm not going to be flying a rainbow all year round, I'm not going to fly a rainbow on June 1st. So anyway, let's get on to this airplane thing. The article talked about someone having $15,000 of gear broken. They posted photos that showed a Pelican with a mishmash of weird gear. All I saw was like a 70 to 200, maybe a old 24 to 70 2.8, a bunch of foam that didn't look like it was in the right place. I saw a Sony camera in there for some reason, an AE1 film camera.
There was definitely like a
weird
5D or some kind of older Canon DSLR 2 with a grip. I saw people commenting that like that was a 7200 f4. It's definitely a 2.8.
That's definitely a 2.8.
Higher end L lenses. So it's a good amount of gear, but I don't know about 15 grand.
No, there may have been $5 or $6 grand of current value of that gear, if that, in there. And that doesn't downplay the fact that there might have been damage. Here comes
and that's still a lot of money. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, of course. And you can't say that this one was an insurance claim because the photographer didn't turn out to actually have insurance. Now, the comment section goes on for quite a while with people questioning whether this was real or not, or whether it was just a cry for gear. I can't tell you whether it was or not, but there's a lot of things that don't point to it that are in a too favorable of a light of the photographer, and I'll explain that in a minute. But the quick of the story is they were flying United Airlines, and they said that when they were waiting in line to board, that an announcement came above that said you need to check all luggage because there's no more overhead bin space on the airplane, which tends to happen if you board later on an airplane. And so they're like, but I have expensive gear, and the person's like, it doesn't matter, we do not have any more room, which is always bullshit because they always say it. I've never, it's very rare where the flight attendants call up to the gate agent and they're like, just to let you know, we are currently out of overhead bin space. I've seen it happen, but it doesn't happen all the time. And I've also seen it where they've announced it before you got on the plane, and then you get on the plane and there's like a ton of overhead space. So it's like
we have an incredibly full flight today. Not just full, but incredibly full.
Yeah, completely full flight. They say very full flight.
A very full flight.
It was like the time that I met that girl.
It's full. Let's just say that.
It's a full flight. We have a full flight, a.k.a. there will be no seats available, which means there might be less overhead bin space. So please be courteous. And if you have a backpack, put it under your seat where it belongs and don't try to take up the overhead bin. Mm-hmm. But the very full thing brings me back to that story where I was riding my bike and this girl was just sitting and she looked like she needed some help. And I offered her my goop, a goop pack, not my goop, a goop pack.
Whoa.
Yeah, Steven, it's a gel shot.
Mm-hmm. Is that what they call them these days?
It's a protein shot. Shit, it's not protein. It's carbs and whatever to carbohydrates to help you feel better quickly. It's sugars and carbs so that you could get up and be better. So I was talking to her and she was cool. It's a nice little conversation. And I'm like, well, I'm single. I might as well ask this person out. And I was like, hey, you ever want to go get some coffee or tea? And she's like, I'm very gay. To which my reply was, on a scale of 1 to gay, how gay are you? I'm like, that's cool 11. That you're very gay. But I didn't ask if you're gay or something. She's like, I'm flattered, but I'm very gay. Well, you could say I'm gay. And
I guess you could be a little gay. You could be bi, right?
She can say whatever she wants. I'm not taking, it's not her fault for saying no to someone asking her out, and nothing against women. Absolutely can say no. That's the whole point. But also men shouldn't be afraid to just ask someone out if you're in a public place and it's nicely done and you're not, and someone says no, you don't get offended and yell at the person. It is what it is. You got to shoot your shot. You got to try.
You got to shoot your goop.
She just so happened to be very gay. And I was just like, that's cool. I like women too. That's great.
We could team up, take on women together, right? Is that what you offered?
I'm equal opportunity for women. Anyway, so overhead bin space. The first mistake is that they check their gear at all. And we're talking a bigger plane, generally speaking. You do not check your gear.
I think first mistake is boarding late.
Okay.
And not doing priority boarding.
Well, but let me also defend someone. Like, if they don't fly often, they might not have priority boarding. But what you need to do, you need to be proactive when you have camera gear. I did it. Like, if I'm flying an airline that I don't normally fly, like I don't fly Southwest. I don't fly that anymore. But if I didn't have priority or whatever, I would walk up and be like, hey, I have an abundance of camera gear that's very expensive that I cannot check. I also have the keyword lithium-ion batteries on board. You cannot check lithium-ion batteries. They must go on board with you.
That's your golden ticket.
Well, it doesn't always work. So I go up and I say, look, I don't have status with the airline. I'm not looking to board before the old, feeble people or the children, but could I board at a reasonable place early to make sure that I'm guaranteed to have an overhead bin space? Because this stuff, I just can't check it. We can't risk it. It's my livelihood. It's $48,000 worth of gear.
Look, I'm Gerald Polin. Do you know who I am? I can't be in the back, seen with these peasants. Please put me in the front.
That's not true, Steven. I have status with airlines, okay? So you need to go up and you need to do that. And if they say no, that's bullshit. Just try to board early before your zone. Many times they don't look. And if they want to be a hard ass, just like you need to do what you need to do to get your shit on the plane.
Just try to be first when your group gets called. Like, don't be at the bar drinking, being the last one on the plane.
But don't be group 9.
Well, of course. But sometimes you are. Sometimes you're stuck that way, and that's when you try and talk to them and say, like you said earlier,
can I board at zone 4?
Yeah.
Right? Like, after priority, is it possible? And it shouldn't be a problem. Just be nice about it.
Yep.
Then there's times where they're like, you're going to have to gate check it, which means they give you a tag and they're like, take it down the jetway when you board and leave it at the end. And then they will slide it down a fucking slide or walk it down a stair or throw it down the stairs. And then they'll put it on a plane. And then you have to pick it up at the terminal. So don't do that. Don't do that. Like, one of the things I've done in the past, I'm like, okay. And then I take the tag off and I carry it on the plane.
Walk on still.
And I walk on and I'm like, it's my gear. I'm not risking it. And then I talk to a flight attendant, and that is better. I'm like, hi, is there a closet you could put this in?
Exactly. Typically they have some secret storage somewhere that they can put it.
Like, I was told that I can't, but I can't risk this because and just say things like, the airline is only responsible up to $3,000 for coverage of gear, which is what it was in the past. So usually they can be helpful. You have to ask nicely. And then you get forceful enough where you need to be. Sometimes you just have to be a little bit more forceful.
You got to be stern, yeah.
The one time I remember, this is the time that I did it. It was one of those smaller Embraer 175s or 195 airplanes. They're smaller airplanes. They're commuter jets. They have a very small overhead bin. I had a bag with wheels on it. And at the time, American Airlines is like, we don't like that type of bag. This happened. I'm rolling the bag onto the plane, and the flight attendant goes, excuse
every
me.
bag have wheels?
Well, she's like, well, they weren't allowing bags with wheels to come on the airplane. It had to do something with like an FAA license, so they said, where bags, they couldn't have wheels because it could damage something, but whatever. So I'm rolling the bag. Because I ignore the gate check person. I don't leave it at the gate. I take the tag off and I come onto the airplane, and the flight attendant's like, excuse me, we don't like those types of bags. And I said, what, black? She's like, no, bags with wheels. I'm like, why? Well, they won't fit in the overhead bin. I'm like, are you telling me that I can't have a bag legally, or you just don't like bags with wheels? Well, they're not going to fit. I'm like, it's going to fit. She's like, don't listen to me. I'm just the flight attendant. I'm like, I know that it fits because I've flown on this plane here, and now we're going home. I know that it fits. And I take my bag out of the front, right? I've got my shoulder bag. It fits perfectly in the bin, and I close the thing. I'm not risking my gear.
And then you gave her a hard look. You're like, you see that? It fit, bitch.
on those commuter jets, it's a little different because if you leave it at the jet bridge, they place it on the airplane and then they take it off the airplane and leave it on the side of the airplane when you get off. That's much better. That is much safer in most situations. But that would be an extremely last resort.
Didn't we have that happen on one of the puddle jumper flights? We had to put it under the plane. We were going to Arizona.
We were going to the Grand Canyon. So we had to we were going to fly into Flagstaff. So super small plane. We're talking like super, super duper small plane, like 14 rows.
Yep.
Now, this is a different situation. This is a much different situation. There's less luggage, means less chance of your stuff getting damaged underneath. It gets placed on right when you're standing there. It gets taken off right when you're standing there. That's like a very different situation where it's okay. I did ask the flight attendant, can I take this on board? And because there was an empty seat, she's like, yes, you can put it in the seat. So that was one way to do it. But we're talking about checking it onto a regular big ass plane, that is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Just because you lose sight, it's not getting put on right there while you're watching, and they will throw it around. You need to take all precautions. If that means having one of the credit cards for an airline that you don't really use, but it gives you status to come on in Zone 4 with that airline, then that's important. So you got to take all these precautions to do that, and getting on early is one of those things.
Agreed.
So the person says that their gear was damaged, like had internal damage. I mean, the way their case looks like is they weren't using good foam. It looks like they were using Sesame Street foam, and that means like super soft, right? It didn't look like their Pelican case had the really good sturdy foam.
I mean, it looks to me that the Pelican case opened, everything fell out, and then they just kind of put it all back in. Obviously not in the right place or anything like that, but it doesn't look like anything was really broken. Hard to tell based on the pictures that were supplied, but the lenses look like they're fine.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You never know. A lens could look fine on the outside, it could be damaged. A camera could look fine on the outside, but be damaged on the inside. But the way that the foam looks just leads me to believe they just threw a bunch of shit in a Pelican and that's it. That's not a way you should really travel. You really need to secure your stuff better. The moral of the story is you take the stuff on the plane. Oh, the other things you can do is you can say, well, I guess I'm going to have to get on a different flight. That is like an extreme last resort. But I wouldn't do it. But my buddy David Bergman, who flies a ton because he's out with Luke Combs, so he's always flying with camera gear. Yeah. He said what you need to tell them is that, okay, well, if you're not allowing me on the plane with my camera gear, let me take something back real fast and get back to the David Bergman thing. One other thing that I am prepared for on smaller planes, if my luggage doesn't fit, is I do have a shoulder bag that fits and smushes into the outside of my roller bag. I will take that bag out, and because that bag without wheels is okay to go up in the overhead bin, but the bag with wheels isn't, which makes no sense. But I take the shoulder bag and I load it up with all of my gear, and I make them wait. And I make people wait. I'm like, if you're going to do this, then, it's coming on the plane. It's going to sit in my lap.
That is the last resort.
That's one of the last resorts. Yeah. So, or grab a physical plastic bag. I've done this too. I've taken a plastic bag and I've taken all my gear and put it into it. It's much safer for me to do it than check my bag and risk it. It's my gear. I'm on the way from a shoot or to a shoot or home, from a shoot. I need to protect my equipment. And if you end up doing the checking thing, I mean, take your memory cards out and take them with you. Take your cameras out, carry them with you. Put them in a plastic bag as a last resort, and just do it.
Yeah, if I'm ever coming from a shoot and flying back home, that is the first thing I do is take all of the memory cards, pop them in my pocket, usually have them organized in a nice Pixel Pocket Rocket or something, and at least if something, God forbid, happened, I still have all the footage, all of the photos, everything, the actual media.
Yeah, so back to the David Bergman thing. He brought up to me, since he flies so much, he's like, you can say to them that, all right, if you're not allowing my gear on board, then you need to get me on a different flight. And if you checked a bag, like luggage or suitcase or something, he's like, according to the FAA regulations, if I don't fly, my bag doesn't fly. So you now need to go get my bag off of the plane, which means delaying the flight because they already loaded everything. Mm-hmm. They have to then physically go find your tag in the plane underneath to then remove it, because if you don't fly, your luggage doesn't fly according to FAA regulations. So if you bring that stuff up to them, then you are able to, have a little bit of a chance of them being like, it's not worth it, and then figuring out a solution.
Smart move.
Buddy, who I went to Africa with, this kid, Nick Parsons, he does a lot of, he lived in Colorado, so he did a lot of flying. And once he saw people, like, he carries snow boots over his shoulder. Didn't want to check them. It's very important. His snow boots are important, just like our cameras. And he could put it over his shoulder, and they're like, excuse me, you can't carry that. You have already you have a roller and a personal item. You cannot have those boots. You're going to have to check them because it was considered a third item. So what's he do? He takes off his shoes, puts them into his carry-on bag, puts on his boots, takes his jacket out of the thing so he could have room for other stuff, puts his jacket on, clomps on board. He's like, okay, how do you like me now? And he clomped on board, took them off, put them up above. It's just, they want to be assholes because there's a little bit of power there. So, you just got to get inventive and just do your thing. It's your gear. Be a little forceful. You got to do what you got to do to protect your gear. And if that means being a little bit of an asshole, I'd rather be an asshole than not have my gear get to where it needs to go and be damaged. Because then I'm an asshole because it's my fault. It's always your fault.
Always.
So that is all I have to say about that. Now, let's get undone.
Oh,
best transition ever. And I'm wearing purple for Gerald Undone.
I love how he ends every episode. Okay, I'm done.
Oh, is that what he does?
That's how he ends it, yeah.
I never get to end of Gerald Undone episodes, so it doesn't matter. I generally don't watch most of them because they're not, we're not in the same.
It's more video centric.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not looking for that information. If I was, I would watch it at 2x speed and probably still not get to the end because usually I just tune off anyway. So, for those who don't know, Gerald Undone makes YouTube videos. Gerald Undone recently made a YouTube video about the review industry or the press trip. Some things need to change.
The title is Camera Reviews Need to Change. ...
How many views is it up to? 200,000 yet?
161,000. I'm sure the back end has even more.
I mean, that's a really good title. And I know that he was thinking of doing this because he posted on Instagram the beginning of a script.
I'm surprised he did it, to be honest.
Yeah, so this is one of those things that sometimes there's business choices, like things that you do on the back end that you talk about amongst friends or other people in the community, or you talk directly with a company.
This has always been a discussion between us creators at events. Let's just say that. We just don't usually publicly say what we're thinking. We do a lot on the podcast, but
we have in the past. We've talked a lot about the trips because people bring up things all the time, like, well, they're paying you to go on the trips, or they're paying for the trips. You're getting a free vacation. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Right. But Gerald decided to just talk, to say what he likes about events and what he doesn't like about events. He went on to talk about he didn't get invited to the Panasonic event, which then led Panasonic to make a video, which is kind of not a good idea, to make a rebuttal video where they talk about, oh, well, he actually was, but maybe it wasn't clear that he was invited. It's not something that I would say because it's pretty clear when you're invited to an event.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, hey, would you like to go to this event? We're going to send flight information shortly. You pretty much know when you're going to go to an event. You're better off just saying nothing at that case as another company. I mean, I debated whether we should talk about this at all, but everybody's wanting to know these answers, and we've talked about it in the past, so we wanted to bring up what Undone was talking about. I was
going to say, I don't think there's going to be anything new that we're going to be saying. A lot of this stuff we have definitely been vocal about in the past on this podcast, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he went into quite a lot about the ethical...
very detailed.
Is it ethical to do something? Should you call it a review?
Overall, to me, this seemed to be more of a warning to new YouTube content creators that get invited on these press trips. Kind of like, don't drink the Kool-Aid, watch out, here's some warnings, that kind of stuff. And here's my personal experience with these trips. I felt like that was the overall theme of this video.
Well, there's some things I agree with and some things that I don't agree with. And one of the things he talked about was this idea that you are rushing to meet an embargo. Now, his answer to that was, I might hold it for 3 months, or I might take more time to do a full review and then put something out later, and my views end up still being the same over time. Now, we've talked about hitting embargoes, whether we want to do it or not, and a lot as of late when it comes to, say, lenses, unless it's a super unique, different lens, I don't care about hitting embargo. Like the 51.2 from Sigma, I'm like, Steven, don't worry about embargo. When that lens comes out, it's going to be perfectly fine. It's going to get plenty of views. We don't need to rush it out. Plus, I can put it in Photo News Fix and talk about it there.
I agree, unless it's a very unique product. Or if it's a body. I feel like most bodies do really well. It is lucrative for us to hit embargo for those types of videos, but lenses are a totally different thing unless it's a world's first or something like that, or just a really interesting lens.
And we've had that with Nikon a bunch.
We have, yes. And
where
Canon,
we've gotten hands-on.
Yes. But him saying the value in being first is severely overrated, I don't know if I totally agree on that, because I do think that you get a nice bump in views, again, depending on the product. But bodies, I think we should pretty much always try and hit embargo, because camera bodies are a totally different thing.
Right. And one of the issues he brought up was at these events, you go, you photograph, you don't have a lot of time to see the negatives. You only see positive from the companies telling you, of course, that's what they're going to tell you. And you don't have a lot of time to set things up and shoot. Couple days.
They obviously leave out the negative aspects of the new product, whether it be a camera or a lens. They're going to hit on the highlights. The thing is, you don't know what you don't know on these trips.
Yep.
Until you actually use that product over and over again. So it is hard to really get a full-on review out of these quick press trips, which is why we personally always call them previews.
And also, one of the reasons you shouldn't call it a review is most of the time they tell us that it's pre-production body, pre-production firmware. That's a way that they cover their ass in case there's an issue.
Which is super annoying because, like you said, anytime we spot a bug or something like that, the answer is always, oh, it's pre-production. It'll be resolved in the production model, whatever it may be, when it comes out. Yet it's on firmware 1.0. There's been plenty of times, and it's really frustrating when they're like, oh, pre-production. Every time. That's their answer.
Yeah, and my biggest takeaway there is when people call it review, by using the word review, you're, again, doing a disservice because it's not a review. When you use the word review, it's meant to say, they're doing that for search results.
Of course.
But you have to say in your video, like, this is pre-production. We still, but most of the time, a lot of the stuff is positive, but you don't know the things, like Steven said, that you don't know just yet, and that comes with time. Now, that's Gerald's point, is that maybe you need to spend more time with it and don't feel obligated to post something, because if you don't post something, the company's probably never going to invite you again, because the whole point of them paying for you to go to this event and giving you this experience is to then guarantee that they get something at launch. And I make sure that these companies know, I don't work for you. We will do what we want to do. We try to hit launch for certain things, but certain times companies have given us, like, let's say we leave on a Tuesday. You get there, you have Wednesday, Thursday, and you fly home Friday, and then it's a Saturday, Sunday, and they release the product on a Tuesday, and they're like, well, you have 5 days to edit. And we're like, well, no, we don't. We got a day and a half of actual time. We also have to film other stuff when we get home.
We've had trips where we've had only 3 days to turn it around, if that. And like you said, it's been a weekend. There's been times where there's been 2 products, not just one. And we're only on this trip for a day or 2. Like, it's really frustrating to try and get a full-on preview of whatever new product is by the time the embargo lifts. And like I said earlier, I do think there is some value in being first for specific products.
So let me explain my reasoning for being okay with posting those videos. One, we call them previews. We make it abundantly clear that there's a lot more information to come in the future when we get full hands-on and I can actually use the camera. So Gerald is right in, full reviews should take time. That's why we started instituting 6 month later reviews.
Or 1 year later.
And 1 year later reviews, where we actually were able to use the cameras longer and find out more about it. My reasoning for not wanting to wait for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to put out a video about a product is, I think people look to us to see what cameras they should buy or to get their information to figure out what they should buy. They want to hear what we have to say. Real photographers in the real world that have used every camera that can give them the information that they're looking for. I also don't want someone happening upon someone else's YouTube channel because maybe I don't post a video, but they end up watching Joe Schmo's really bad video, and I don't like the information that they share, and I feel like I'm doing a disservice to my following if I don't put out a video, because we've had this happen where we've pointed out things in a camera that weren't good, and other people didn't talk about it or glossed over it, and people come back to our channel to be like, I'm glad you said this because so-and-so didn't bring this up. One, maybe so-and-so just doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, and they don't have the expertise to know what they're doing, or they just decided not to say it, which is bullshit. So I feel like we have to post as soon as possible because people look to us as the authority in the field and need to get that information.
Agreed. And thankfully, the pandemic really did change up the press trips for us, at least. A lot of the companies kind of obviously couldn't do press trips during the pandemic, so they started sending out gear before the embargo, like a few weeks or even months, which was really nice for us because then we could do our own thing. We weren't limited to 2 or 3 days with a product. We could spend weeks with it. And we could still hit embargo and have plenty of time to pretty much do a full review at that point. Unfortunately, trips are 100%. Coming back.
Yeah, let's take a step back and talk about press trips in general. Press trips are a thing that companies do to give people an early hands-on to get, obviously reviews. That's what they want. This isn't unique to photo industry.
No.
It's in every single industry, whether you're a travel person, like you're a travel agent is flown all over the world to test out different hotels. And of course that, they want them to recommend their hotel to them. That's a little, different. It's not an electronic and the hotels don't change very often, but then service might go down. The car industry on YouTube is a huge one. Car companies either drop a car to you literally at your doorstep or in your driveway or in your garage for you to test for a week or two, and then they come pick it back up. Or if it's a major event, they'll fly you somewhere. I've seen ones where they're at castles in Paris, right? Or in Germany, a German castle up in the right? Up in the Black Forest where they have gummy bears. And so you get it? Black Forest gummy bears? Yeah, Black Forest gummy bears in Germany. Harbo. So it's not unique to us. So when I first started, I of course didn't get invited to anything because I was new.
And I kind of want to break that down real quick too before you get too far into that, because Gerald does list the 3 stages of YouTubers. Starting with stage 1, he basically says you start off by reviewing your own gear, whatever you have laying around. Once you do that, you hopefully build up an audience. Brands will then see you. They'll start sending out the invites. The gear will start rolling in. And then the 3rd stage, which is kind of where we're at right now, is when you're just over it. You're over it all. You're over the press trips. You see the lack of value in the trips. The audience doesn't really see any of that. He goes on to say, basically, we're disposable as creators, blah, blah, blah. But talk about your stages of YouTube and when you started out.
Yeah, when I first started out, no events at all.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the first event was. I don't know if it was a Sony event. It might have been because Canon and Nikon didn't do a ton of events until Sony started pushing a lot of events. And so we would get invited. So what happens is you get an email from the press people at these companies and they say, hey, are these dates good? We're going to be holding an event, or are you available at this time? And what they do is they literally book the flight for you. You tell them what flights you want. They book it. They pick you up at a hotel. Oh, by the way, this has happened in the YouTube world too. Google would fly me places, and amazingly, they pick you up in awesome black cars and put you up in hotels. YouTube does that stuff. They used to do it. They wine and dine you, which is great, but it's not like I'm not going to use YouTube at that point. But they pay for the trip. You go there. They pay for the hotel. They pay for all of that. They feed you. But what I need to remind you guys is I'm not working for them. I'm not getting paid. I actually lose money on a trip.
Yeah.
And I lose money on a trip because when Steven goes with me, Steven gets paid, right? Steven has a salary. I have a salary. These are man-person hours that are gone. So if we have to fly out on a Wednesday, or say, so we fly out on a Tuesday and say it's a 2-day event, Wednesday, Thursday, you fly back Friday. So now you're leaving on a Tuesday, all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, and you fly back on Friday. And it's not like you get right to work. Now, if Steven has to quickly edit on the weekend because some embargo is on Tuesday, you better believe he's taking time off after he's done, because he spends a lot of time to get stuff done. But think about that. That's like 5 days at least dedicated to one product. I'm losing money because that's 5 days that we're not focused on our own products, our own videos that generate. And yes, it's a trade because we make money off of these videos, but that's a lot of time out of the studio.
And in the beginning, it really was only trips for really big releases, big launches. Then there became a trip for every little launch and release, like little lenses that we really don't care about. We're not going to get a ton of views. So to go cross country for 5 days for a minor lens that'll give us 25,000 views was absolutely not worth our time. And then companies started dueling with each other pretty much. And if you want to get into that.
Yeah, like basically what happened is Sony started throwing a lot of events.
Yes.
They did. And there's nothing wrong with that. Events are great. It's fun to go on an event and see people. It's not a vacation. Like when we went to Hawaii for Canon, I bitch about every event. I'm like, why are you forcing us to go all the way to Hawaii? It's 6 hours to LA. It's another 6 hours to Hawaii. It's a 12-hour journey for us to go spend a whole week. And yeah, it's a big announcement, but can't you guys come up with something closer for us? Like it started to get out of hand. Sony was the one who started to throw all the money around. And because Sony started to do it, Nikon wanted to follow suit and Canon wanted to follow suit. And so now in a month where there's like June, when releases start to happen, it's like we're flying to LA for one company, we fly home. Another company a week later is like, okay, let's go to Seattle. So we fly to Seattle to come home. Another company's like, let's go to Orlando. You're going to it. And now all you do is fly around. And it just got to the point where I'm like, guys, we're not going on these trips.
Yeah.
We had to make decisions like but then you feel like you're missing out. If you don't have a preview video and these guys have hands-on and you don't, you're not getting those initial views.
And keep in mind, you typically don't know what the product will be until you go on that trip.
Right,
now, there may be
that's
rumors flying around, but usually you don't really know exactly what's going to be released.
Right, so they don't tell you everything.
So it's the whole FOMO aspect.
Let me remind you, we are not working for those companies. Generally speaking, if they're not feeding me well, I'm bitching about it. There is a whole discussion before I go away about what I need to eat on a trip.
Hey, I will say these press trips are absolutely miserable for me, because you are constantly complaining about food and like the reservations or whatever it may be. And
I don't complain about reservations. I will complain about food first and foremost. I make it abundantly clear. I have a specific style of eating. I'm not working for you. If you guys expect us to work, you need to feed us properly. Case in point, when you leave early in the morning to go drive somewhere at one of these events and all they had was coffee and pastries,
yeah.
I'm like, that is not acceptable for my morning routine. What I need in a morning, I need something protein, so that's hard-boiled eggs, or I'm going to drink my own protein. I need banana. I need clean oats. I need clean eating.
And the issue is, we're then running around for the next 5 or 6 hours until lunch, and I'm chasing you around, filming you, and I'm running off fumes like coffee or something like that. Like you just said,
it's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. Remember, I don't work for them, so I have no problem telling them this is how it needs to be. If you are forcing us to be at these events, you better take care of us.
And let me just paint the picture too of like what a normal press trip looks like. Like we've been on trips where we fly in, you get briefed that night about the new product. You then have to set up said product, get familiar with any new features. After dinner, at that point, it's like 10 o'clock at night. You're trying to set this camera up, test it out, do whatever, get it ready for the morning, because you have to then start shooting at 6 a.m. the next morning, and you only have a few hours, and then you're pretty much on a flight home that next day trying to review this product, and it's just incredibly tough.
And there are some people that take these trips and go and
it is a vacation for some people. Let's just
for
say
some
that.
people, like they go to the bar and
I've seen people get loaded on these trips.
Yeah. Like they'll go to the bar and they'll order top shelf whiskey where they expect the companies to pay for it, and the companies do. That's out of hand. You don't do that. If you're going to drink, like Steven getting a beer, like I don't drink. Do you sometimes pay for your own beer, right?
Yes. Yeah. Not every time, but it depends.
Yeah, sometimes you do, and then other times they're like, yeah, just put it on we're going to pay for it because they want to treat you well. We're not complaining about this. Like, it is what it is, but there are times that I've been on trips where the food has been subpar somewhere. Like hamburgers and hot dogs. There was an Olympus trip where they had like a tray of cold cuts. I'm like, fuck you guys. You're going to keep us in a room for 5 hours. I'm not eating this garbage.
Where's my filet?
Well, so bringing up that Olympus trip, when we did put up a vlog, and then I did take it down because people said that they misunderstood my joking
mind,
around.
This is the one trip that I was not on, and you were by yourself on this trip.
Yeah,
filming.
This was
yourself eating cake.
Yeah, ordering lava cake to my room,
and then complaining about it for 20 minutes.
Yeah, because lava cake should not have Nutella in it. It should have real chocolate.
The first trip I wasn't on, and the first edit I did not double check before it went live. Never again.
Yeah. So anyway, it was for their their highest end camera at the time, and we're sitting in the room. See, when Gerald talks about they only give you positives, he's right. They don't really point stuff out. Now, we're sitting in this room.
They don't lie
Daytona.
to you. They just refuse to tell you the negative things, basically. They leave things out on purpose.
So we're at this event. There's 40, 50, 60 press people in a room at the Daytona Speedway or something in Florida, and they're giving a presentation, and they're showing autofocus between an Olympus camera and a Canon camera. And they claim that this Olympus camera has better autofocus than the competitor Canon camera. They didn't mention what Canon camera it was. So I interrupt them and I say, you can't say that. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you can't make that claim unless you say what camera you compared it to. Well, we're not allowed to say what camera it is because it's a competitor camera. I'm like, then you can't make that claim in front of us. They're like, well, I'm like, no, there is no well. And I look at everybody else in the room. I turn around and I say, is anybody else going to back me up here? You can't make a claim where you say that our autofocus is better, but you don't say what camera it is. Maybe it's a G7X or GL. Maybe it's some bullshit
a Rebel
camera
from
they
10 years ago.
Right. And so I just kept hammering it home until they got pissed off. And they're like, we're just going to move on. I'm like, you can't say that. And I finally let it go. But I yelled at everybody, all the press people. I'm like, what is your problem, guys? We don't owe them anything. They are giving information that they can't back up. And you guys are going to turn around and report it because you guys do that shit.
I will say Sony, during their briefings, when they do point out or compare it to different brands, they're very specific on what products they're comparing it to. Like, compared to a Canon 24-70 2.8 or whatever. Like, they'll be very specific and not blanket statement like, this is better than Canon or Nikon or whatever.
Yeah, the companies
they
are now
one
doing
company that will highlight certain products.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the Olympus experience. It was miserable because it just wasn't a good event.
First and last Olympus trip for you. I will say Gerald did hit on, how companies can be punitive. And I think that's kind of where you fall with Olympus right now after that trip.
Well, Olympus is out of business anyway. I don't really give a shit about Olympus. So that was obviously the last Olympus trip I went on, but it did get worse. Part of the reason was I ended up on a rumor site with the Olympus camera because someone took a picture of me.
Well, because you guys were shooting at a public event, right?
Well, yeah, we were supposed to go photograph some like Arena League football team or something, or indoor football team, and that got canceled. So they went and drove us like an hour away.
I think everything was rained out, right?
No, it wasn't. It was something else. I don't know what it was.
I thought you went indoors for something.
Well, there was indoor practice and outdoor practice. But what happened is they then take us to like the University of Florida or one of those schools that was having an open football practice, which means the public can show up. So I'm sitting there taking pictures. Well, one of the people there obviously recognized me, was a fan of what I did, took pictures of me holding a camera, and then submitted it to Olympus. And then Olympus got upset at me. I'm like, you took us there.
I was on your trip, guys.
This is your trip.
Yeah.
And I just was pissed off because it was like an hour and a half in a bus to get to an event. This is part of the reason I hate these events is that's
on par with most of these press trips. You're in a van for half the time traveling a long distance. What was the one where we were in a bus forever and then the bus ran out of gas?
Ran out of gas?
Yeah.
It was one of that was a Nikon D850 trip.
Oh man. We were so close and we lost the whole shoot because of that.
That was bad. That was the bus. That wasn't Nikon's fault.
That was totally the bus driver.
Those drivers did not show up again because they were fired because they didn't make sure they had enough fuel. Which
and wasn't just that.
asinine.
It was something else on that trip too that the bus driver did. I forget what it was.
The driver wasn't very good.
Yeah.
There was that. Oh, I've done that too before, Steven. I remember there was a trip, but this reminds me of it, where we had an atrocious driver. Like, I mean, not safe. They were driving too slow. They were veering off the road. Like the other car in front of us, which was like a caravan, we were in the wrong vehicle. At the next rest stop, I asked to get in a different car. I did not feel safe in the car with that person driving.
I'm pretty sure I was in that car with you, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to be in a different vehicle. And then we got a different driver the next day. I'm just like, well, this isn't safe.
I remember also a Sony trip where we were going up like a mountain range or something and coming around a corner. And
Steven, we were in a big bus for that.
Yes.
Going to the near woods.
Going up this mountain, and I swear we were going to fall off the road, man.
We should have not been there.
No.
That was dangerous.
A bus that size should not have been driving there.
So when there's things that happen on these events, I'm the one who speaks up.
I think the thing is, you could take someone privately to the side and speak up instead of openly in front of everybody, and I think that's the issue usually.
Yeah.
To be respectful when they're doing a giant presentation, you're like, bullshit, I'm calling you out in the back.
I'm calling you out during the presentation. I'm 100% calling them out every time. You can't say it. If you say something that's false and misleading, I'm not going to say, wait till the end to say it, because they've already said it to everybody else.
Yeah, but that's up to them. They can then decide if they want to bring it up in their review or not, or preview or whatever
but they
it may
don't
be.
know. A lot of times they do. They just take word for word what these people say.
And that's, I think, what separates us from them.
Yeah. So to bring this all back, our stance on trips is that we try not to do trips. Our goal is not to do trips. Our goal is to get the company to either send us the gear or bring it down to us early where we can do it on our terms, on our turf, with our photo shoots. We don't need to travel halfway around the world or the country to go photograph some setup portrait shoot or some garbage shoot somewhere. We don't need that. We can set it up ourselves because we are actual photographers. So that's one of the reasons we rather not do a trip. It's not a free lunch. It's not a free vacation. I like getting the extra airline miles, but other than that, it's a lot of time to be out of our element where we could be focusing on our work.
Yeah, it's never a vacation for us. We work our ass off during these press trips, and like you said, I wish every company would send us gear early before embargo and let us really truly test out and have weeks to play with the new gear. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Hopefully, maybe after this video, it's going to start going that way. But
well, even as little as 2 weeks.
Exactly. Just more than 1 or 2 days on these press trips. There's been times, again, like we said, there's been 2 products in one day that we have to try and test out. And it's like, how can we do? It's not physically possible.
Or do what they used to do. Brief us beforehand, and we make a preview video.
Old school preview, yeah.
No one has hands on. We make a preview, and then as soon as it's announced, you're now free to send it to us to review.
Yeah.
But then it becomes a race to who could get it done quicker, and then so that's what happens is we'll get it quicker before Canada or whatever, and it just becomes it's either way. It's like as a creator, you have to make a decision on what works best for you and go with that.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time there. That's all we have to say about that. Let's move on to the last thing we'll talk about this week, the Canon R1 specs that have purportedly been announced or leaked onto Canon Rumors.
So Canon Rumors is now reporting it's going to have a 24 megapixel CMOS BSI stacked sensor, a readout speed of about 2 milliseconds, quad pixel autofocus, intelligent AF tracking, 16-bit mechanical shutter, 14-bit electronic shutter, 6K raw video at 120 frames per second, dual CF Express Type B card slots, compatible with CF Express 4, which is really nice. That'll be extra fast. USB 4 port, full-size HDMI, eye control AF2, and they're saying it's going to be priced around $6,500, but that is not locked in just yet. This sounds like an R3 Mark II to me.
Unfortunately, yeah, it sounds like an R. And when I say unfortunately, it's 100% going to be a fantastic camera. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it because the R3 is already great. But it is very hard to sit here and say that, well, when you talked about 4 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever the R3 came out, that is not the flagship and the R1 will be the flagship. it's hard to say that a 24 megapixel camera that generally speaking does the same thing, just improved from an R3, is not an R3 Mark II and is in fact an R1. Unless it has some magical fairy dust, I don't know how it's an R1.
24 megapixel BSI stacked is already what the R3 has. Yeah, it's not a 2 millisecond readout speed, but it's maybe double that, which is still fast enough for 99.9% of things that you're shooting, action, sports, whatever it may be. It looks exactly the same camera-wise, which was fine because truly the R3 was an incredible body in the hands. Ergonomic-wise, it really does feel great. So just having some refined updates, I think that is acceptable. But if it's still 30 frames a second, all of that, it's just an evolutionary update here, not revolutionary.
No, I'm totally fine with 24. I've come to terms that 24 is fine. I know a lot of sports shooters would prefer. Well, yeah, but a lot of sports shooters want to do that crop. I could see 30-some megapixels. I think that the R3 is already clean at 10,000 ISO, and they're saying that this thing will be even cleaner in ISO situations. But with the fast f2s and 1.2 lenses these days, it's almost unnecessary to push ISOs beyond 4.5, 6400. I rarely shoot at 6400. I expect this camera to be super clean. I expect it to be super nice. I just, with these rumored specs, remember, rumored specs are just rumors. They're not facts. And if something is wrong and Canon does come out and announce something, or they announce something and the rumor spec that you thought was in there was not in there, you can't get angry at Canon for something that was made up and not true. So,
like I said last week, it's somebody's wish list, and it's going to piss people off when this camera gets announced and half of those specs are not included.
So we'll see if it is a 24 megapixel stack sensor with 2 millisecond readout speed. I find it hard to believe with how accurate rumor sites have been that they are far off.
Yeah, but Canon these rumors have been all over the place with these two cameras, the R5 Mark II and the R1. I mean, it's hard to say that these are correct or not because there were all types of different lists that they had the past few months.
I guess they did say 30 megapixels at some point.
Because the R1's been rumored for so long.
Yeah.
Now, also, the back of the camera did leak. You can see pictures of it on Canon rumors.
I don't call that a leak.
I mean, this looks to be pretty legit, though.
Oh, no, that's the person that reached out to me on Instagram. That's literally the person, that clear picture. The person reached out to me on Instagram and said, hey, I have a picture of the back, 2 pictures of the back of the R1. Would you like to see it? I said, sure. To which their reply was, will you send me FroPack 1 in exchange? And I said, no, thank you. To which they then yelled at me and told me I'm an unpleasant person because they didn't ask for all 4 FroPacks. They only asked for 1. And I was like, first off, you asked if I would like to see these pictures. I said, sure. You didn't say anything about trading you for those pictures. I don't care. They'll come out. It doesn't matter. I'll have the camera at some point. I don't need it. Like, it's not a big deal. I'm not looking to do breaking news. That's not where we make our living. We don't do that by pissing off Canon by putting up these type of pictures. That wouldn't look good for us. Sure. So no. And the pictures ended up on Canon rumors anyway. They're very clear. Like the person literally was like, here, take a picture of the back of my camera.
It is a super high resolution, clear picture.
So talk about the differences.
There's not many, to be honest. I mean, minus a couple button placements. Like there's now an info button next to the vertical grip. There's some kind of window where the LAN icon is.
Which I have no idea what that window is. Could it be like a QR code reader? Like, is it going to read a QR code?
Why would it read
something?
a QR code?
I don't know.
Doesn't even make sense.
I don't know.
But they still have the smart controller. They still have a joystick that looks like it was refined. The playback button has been moved from the top to the bottom now.
The rate button moved?
The rate button, yeah. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Because the MFN button moved to where the rate button was.
Yeah, they're all going to be custom buttons, hopefully, at the end of the day. There is some sort of FTP icon at the top of the camera, I noticed. And then, unfortunately, it looks like it's just going to be another vari-angle touchscreen. I don't think it's going to tilt or flip up because it doesn't pop out. It's flush with the body.
Which is horrible because I was doing a shoot yesterday with the R3 and so the girl was playing the piano and I wanted to do a top-down shot. So I stood on a chair and I flipped the screen out And all I did for like the next 30, 40 seconds was try to find what angle I needed to actually get the camera to make it straight. I couldn't get it straight whatsoever. Yeah. It took forever, and then it's just not easy. If it just flips back, flips up, and or that 5-axis that puts it straight, that is what it needs to be. People are like, well, Jared, you could just do this, and if it's just flat on the camera and flips down, that's not great. I'm like, no, that's actually good for getting your line straight.
Agreed. We'll see if more pictures come out, if there's anything, more specs, stuff like that, because right now it's a crapshoot. I don't know what's real and what's not.
Yeah, hopefully, being that there's a development announcement, we'll be able to get hands-on and be official to put out a video at some point when we get it. We want to get it because I want to use it. I want to see what it's like. And
yeah,
so,
and the body was never an issue for me. I've always liked the feel of the R3, so refining that, totally okay. But spec-wise, I think they need to do a lot better than nearly the same sensor. But who knows? I mean, it might blow us away. These might just be completely false rumors. I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt, like all rumors.
And we'll have to wait and see. So, quite long episode. We went into overtime here. This is RAWtalk 104. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Anything you want to add to this before we go, Steven?
That is it.
Yeah, that is it for this week, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget about the code FRO14, FroKnowsPhoto.com/FroPack4. Click on the Grand Slam bundle. Get yourself $14 off, plus all those extra entries into the Super Huger Mega Camera giveaway. All right. Thank you very much for listening. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.
Bye.